Welcome in, everybody. Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline, Tuesday, December 29th, 2015. Coach Hunter, we're out of the gate with some technical difficulties, but we'll roll right into it, so we're on the air. Thanks, everybody, for joining us wherever you may be across the state. Joined in studio by the coach, Greg Hunter. Greg, good evening.
Good evening.
I got to turn you up. We're having all kinds of technical difficulties.
We got everything going wrong, but that's okay.
We're here.
We're here. We're on the air. Baylor and North Carolina are on the air for
football.
We've
got all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we're loaded. Here's what we've got. So let's kind of dive right into this thing. We've got Tony Caridi's coming up here in just a few minutes. The Mountaineer basketball team is back in action after what seems like a 25-day layoff.
Yeah.
They've been off for 9 days. They return to action tomorrow in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. So Tony will be by here in just a few minutes to give us a preview of that game. We'll also hear at the bottom of the hour from Ben Kirchhoff from Bleacher Report. He's going to get us up to date on all the Big 12 happenings in bowl season. We see Baylor is underway, Coach Hunter, against North Carolina. And I have to say, this is one of those non-Power 6 or non-New Year's Day 6 games that I was really intrigued in. But my goodness, this is a totally different Baylor team. They're not only without Seth Russell, the starting quarterback who'd been out there, without Jared Stidham, the backup quarterback. They don't have Corey Coleman, the great wide receiver, and they don't have Shock Linwood, their running back. So this is really a decimated Baylor team and doesn't resemble anything that we saw earlier in the season.
Yet they're tied 7-7 to a very good North Carolina team here. It's midway through the first quarter, but we were sitting watching a little of this, and you made the comment, and I think you're right. Baylor's already gone twice on fourth down, once in their own territory. So they're just throwing all caution to the wind. Bowl game, we're beat up. What the heck? Let's just, manufacture whatever we can manufacture and go from there. So, but the Bears did finish off a touchdown drive with one of those fourth down conversions, and so far have done probably as well as you can expect for a team that has players in the lineup right now that I doubt that their position coaches know who they are.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. And that's what happens when you have these big layoffs between games. It just weird things happen. Guys are ineligible because of grades. They miss because of injury. You don't get guys back. You thought you may have time to heal. So this one is, in the true sense of the word, exhibition.
Sure.
This really is an exhibition, but it's too bad because it's two teams that I think would have been a lot of fun to watch. Now, Baylor's not the only Big 12 team in action tonight, and this one's really interesting, Greg. Texas Tech taking on LSU in the Advocare V100 Texas Bowl. So you talk about two contrasting styles.
Yes.
Texas Tech can't stop the two of us running the football, and they're going to get Leonard Fournette from LSU. All that turmoil LSU went through with Les Miles, is he staying or going? So he reappears tonight. But here's what I think is interesting. That game's a sellout. They're saying 70,000 people will be in attendance for that game. We've mentioned this earlier. This points to why it will be a challenge for West Virginia over the years in the Big 12 to get into a bowl like that when they can grab a Texas Tech and sell a ton of tickets.
Yeah, Houston, a location for this. And obviously the LSU factor is huge as well because, Baton Rouge in Louisiana is not far from Houston, so they certainly travel well. Texas Tech a long ways from Houston, but also within the same state. So I'm sure they're bringing a lot of people. But you're right. I mean, Texas Tech, a team that finished below West Virginia. West Virginia beat them, but technically was picked ahead of West Virginia in the bowl pecking order because people knew that they would sell more tickets for this bowl game. And the matchup certainly for them is going to be difficult, but in terms of marketing, those people got to be thrilled with what they're going to get.
Yeah, no question. You get 70,000 for the Texas Bowl. You've got to be doing backflips if you're that committee. Some other games going on, one already in the books, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl featured Cal and Air Force. Cal wins that one 55-36. Jared Goff, Cal's stud quarterback, went off 467 yards passing and 6 touchdowns. And, Greg, I was saying to somebody before the show started, that's a good example of what we always talk about. And, I always think predicting college football is so difficult anyway. But I think predicting these bowl games is darn near impossible. I'm not sure coaches can give you an accurate prediction on how their team is going to show up. And that's such a big factor is motivation. But look at that Cal team. They had a coach that was trying to take multiple other jobs during the offseason in Sonny Dykes or during this time between the regular season end and the bowl game. He returns to Cal, so you kind of have that distraction floating around. They're playing a team in Air Force that's not a Power 5. I don't know how excited you'd be after playing in the Pac-12 to go play a non-Power 5 team, so you have that. You're playing a weird style in the option attack of Air Force that we always say gives people trouble. They're playing at what would amount to an 11 a.m. on their body clock. They came all the way across country, right? They had
At least halfway.
They had
Yeah.
all kinds of reasons to not be ready to play, yet they come out, put up big numbers, and get a bowl win.
Yeah.
You don't know, right? You can't predict who's going to show up.
You don't. Of course, it helps when you got a quarterback that is really, really good. It's not the first time Jared Goff's put up big numbers and done nice things. So they've got a good offense. Defensively, run game, they've got some issues, but certainly what they can do throwing the football, at least this year, has been impressive throughout the season and was so against Air Force as well. Now, they couldn't stop Air Force's run game either. I had that on at the office while I was working some this afternoon, at least listening to it, and Air Force was running up and down the field with their option attack, but Cal really is just so explosive offensively. And remember, that was the team that Arizona State played in the regular season finale and had a comeback victory in the final moments to pull out a win, did Cal, over the Sun Devils. And obviously West Virginia will now see the Sun Devils on Saturday evening.
We mentioned last night, Greg, Tony and I were talking about this is a fun week on the sports calendar because you basically just, once we get to afternoon, there's games on. There's football games. There's basketball games. Today's no different. I ran down those bowl games. There's also one other going on, the Arizona Bowl, Colorado State, and Nevada goes at 7:30 this evening. So that's happening. But there's basketball aplenty. Notre Dame right now beating Liberty 43-26 in the second half. But look at this Big 12 slate of hoops that's going on today. Baylor's already in the books with a win over Texas Southern, 72-59. That's 23rd ranked Baylor. Texas Tech and Richmond are playing right now. We've talked about the TCUs and the Texas Techs of the world in Big 12 basketball. At some point with Tubby Smith, you think that Texas Tech team is going to keep improving, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now they're up 49-29 over Richmond with 17 minutes to go in the second half. So that if that continues, there's a lot of time left in that one. But that's an impressive and an eye-opening game by Texas Tech against a pretty good Richmond team, I thought.
Has seen them and certainly think that they've got some ability. I mean, again, they're not a top 25 club, but that's a challenging opponent for anyone out there. So that at this point would be a very nice victory.
Some other teams in action tonight on the Big 12 side. Oklahoma State takes on Missouri, Kansas City. Kansas State taking on St. Louis. Kansas versus UC Irvine. And then this one could be fun to watch. Connecticut and Texas, 9 o'clock tonight.
Sure, very much enjoyable. And, you'll get a couple of those. Obviously, conference play starts for everybody on the basketball side next week, but you're going to get a couple of those. Obviously, West Virginia and at Virginia Tech tomorrow, but you'll get a few of those sort of games with Power 5 teams or certainly strong teams that face off against each other, and we'll start getting rid of some of the cupcake fare that we've seen so much of through December and November.
So we'll keep an eye on some of these games, particularly that Texas Tech Richmond basketball game and this Baylor North Carolina game, which is knotted at 7, 3:52 to go in the first quarter. Other football news today: the Mountaineers arrived in Arizona, so they are on the ground and will begin practicing today. Actually, right, Greg?
A little bit today, and then tomorrow. Tomorrow about noon in the east, 10 p.m. I'm sorry, about 2 in the east, and about noon. Yeah, I got to get these.
You're going to be doing
right.
a lot of translation there, so get it right.
And I better get it right now because tomorrow my body clock's going to be completely off. I will be at practice tomorrow, whenever the heck they hold it, if my plane gets there in time and if I figure out what time it is actually in Arizona. But they'll have certainly a complete practice tomorrow. They arrive today, get sort of acclimated, a little bit of workout today. No media opportunities today for the Mountaineer football team other than sort of here they come off the plane and those type of things that you'll see. And but we'll get a chance to see them in practice tomorrow again if I get out there to Phoenix in time.
Yeah, and you'll be there, so you're going to join us on the program from Arizona. So we'll get a live practice report
throughout the week.
You can give us some flavor of the land of the sun once you arrive out there. So we'll be looking forward to that. Let's get a first break in now. When we come back, we're going to transition back into hoops. Tony will join us to give a preview of the West Virginia Tech game, which comes up tomorrow at noon. Stay with us. We're back after this on the Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline.
There's something about football season in West Virginia. The air's a little crisper, the sense of Mountaineer pride a little deeper, and the Book Exchange is loaded with everything WVU. Fans from all over the state and the nation gearing up with the latest Mountaineer apparel and gifts from the state's largest selection. This is way more than win or lose. This is the pride of being a Mountaineer. Gear up at the place that understands what it means to be a mountaineer. Visit bookexchangewv.com.
Someday we'll go to the edge of the galaxy, but for now, you can go to the ends of the earth in a Jeep brand SUV. Find your adventure in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most awarded SUV ever. Catch a show of shooting stars underneath the night sky in the Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 four-wheeler of the year. And go far, far away in the Jeep Renegade with up to 31 mpg highway. Hurry in for a great deal at the Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event. Deal ends January 4th. Star Wars: The Force Awakens in theaters now, rated PG-13. Well-qualified lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo 4x4 for $279 a month for 36 months with $24.99 due at signing. Tax, title, and license extra. EPA estimate, 1.4-liter engine with manual transmission. Call 1-888-925-JEEP for details. Requires dealer contribution and lease through Ally. 20-cent charge for each mile over 30,000. Residency restricted supply. Take delivery by 1-4-16. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
There, just 5 more minutes, almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Welcome back in. Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline Tuesday edition. Brad Howe alongside the coach, Greg Hunter. The Friends of Old Time Music and Dance are hosting a New Year's celebration this Friday in Charleston. The event includes a dance workshop for new dancers, family fun activities, a kids' art table, hors d'oeuvres, and refreshments. Award-winning songwriter and vocalist John Lilly will be joined by Robert Schaefer, Jesse Milnes, and John Thornton for a lively evening of old-time music, contra dances, square dances, swing, and waltzes. Hunter, that's right up your alley. Very much. Real mountain music. You'll find it here. Wild, wonderful West Virginia. We're joined in studio now by Tony Caridi. Tony, good evening.
Good evening to you, man.
All right, let's talk a little hoops here. Mountaineers getting ready to hit the road for a mid-afternoon or a midday tilt with Virginia Tech's sold-out building from what we've heard of. And I don't want to say the first real test. Virginia was the first real test, but this is a step up from some of the other games we've seen West Virginia play in so far this year.
Yeah, it's a Power 5 team, and I know it doesn't carry the same weight as in football, the basketball, because you have very good basketball teams that aren't necessarily in Power 5 conferences, but I do think that it just takes it up a level, and the fact that it is the first true road game of the season. And then when they say it's sold out, literally, I made a call today. Someone needed 3 tickets together, and I went to the highest level. the highest level at Virginia Tech, and they had to work on it for me. They didn't have any, so they were working on it. So I do think that the crowd will be very boisterous. It is kind of a weird deal, holiday week type noon thing, so I think people kind of attract to it. I think here in Morgantown, we've seen it through the years. During this week, if you remember, you draw really well. And so I think that the Mountaineers, better be ready that it's not just going to be another Louisiana Monroe.
We talked a little bit last night, though. Sometimes these atmospheres, when they take place against an opponent, I don't want to disrespect Virginia Tech here. I know this is going to sound like I am, but West Virginia is going to be better than Virginia Tech. So they're going to step on the floor, and this place is going to be going crazy. And you get some of these Mountaineer guys, they have a little bit of swagger, a little bit of attitude, and they're going to be better than the guy across from them for the most part. This could actually help West Virginia, I think, a little.
I agree. I think this is when you see the essence of your team, because in the reality of it is, and I think you guys would agree, these guys knew for the most part that in each of the games that they've played this season, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, that they were going to probably win by double figures or were expected to win by double figures. And for the most part, they have. So now I think that you enter into a different mindset. Now you're into the thing where these are close games. Now you're being told, hey, this is not a walkover. And as a result of that, I think you find that what teams are really, truly made of. You better have swagger to win on the road, and you better have a lot of swagger if you're the Mountaineers at this point, because what's in store for you for the next 2 months is going to be one of these plus week in, week out, game in and game out.
Tony, Virginia Tech certainly doesn't appear to be a great basketball team. They are 8-4 right now, so give them credit for that, but they don't have a quality victory. I guess UAB, it would be the best victory that they have. But what do you know about the Hokies? How good is this Virginia Tech club?
Well, this is a team that won 11 games last season in Buzz Williams' first year, and they felt that they set the foundation as to what they want to become as a program properly. So he's up to 8 right now, so he's going to be better, right, than he was a year ago. All indications are that he's going to be better. And I think he's in the early stages of building a program. I mean, the guy can coach, let's face it, but you've got to have players. He had 4 NBA guys roll through when he was at Marquette. That's a big number. 4 NBA guys is a big number. So I think he's getting more of his kind of guys in, and I think that they're heading in the right direction. Now, I think the loss that they had during the Christmas break with Chris Clark really hurts them. Here's a kid that was averaging 10 points and 7 rebounds. It literally takes their roster down to 12. They're going to see full court pressure that they haven't seen to this point. If you look at last year's box score, they really struggled with the pressure a year ago. They were on the north side of 20 turnovers. I think it was 25 if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the box in front of me. So the pressure really bothered them. Of course, they were here last year, so it was a different deal. But I think, improving. They've got some size. They've got 2 7-footers. Believe it or not, they come off of the bench, so they're not finished 7-footers, but they do add some size. They rebound the ball extremely well, and really on the offensive glass, which is really West Virginia's, that's its strongest point. They've been number 1 in the nation in offensive rebounding. So you just got to play fundamentally sound. And, last night we had Hugs on the show, and he said, one of the big things he wants is just hold on to the ball, because while you may not want to admit this, West Virginia's second shot is oftentimes its best shot. Mm-hmm. Just get the ball up on the backboard on the rim and let Holton and let Devin Williams and let Issa Ahmad go get it, follow up, baskets. That's kind of how this team is going to have to score. And so I think those are all the elements. Plus, I think there's one other kind of a side category, in my opinion, to every college basketball team at this time of year. You're playing your first games after Christmas. Kids go home for a short break, in some cases a little longer break, for WVU this year. And so I enter this into the category of what they say. So in other words, when you get back to your home base for the holidays, you have people that come around you that watched you in high school, that may have watched you grow up as a player. What they say, because in my opinion, a lot of times kids come back and they have a readjusted agenda. Because someone goes home and says, hey, man, I've been watching you and you're not doing this like you used to do. You're not doing this. What's the matter with you? Some say, hey, you need to be getting more shots up. So what they say oftentimes comes back and it translates onto the court. And I just kind of keep my ears and eyes open to those, because if some kid comes in and starts doing some things now that he hadn't been doing in the first month of the season, you kind of go like, someone got to him. and coach, and sometimes that helps a player. Sometimes they get back and say, hey, this is how you play. And the kid comes back, and all of a sudden you go, wow, he's really playing now. It turns a light bulb on. For some, it becomes a negative. It goes out of the flow of what they're trying to do, and he needs to get, kind of pulled to the side and said, stop doing that. Mm-hmm. But I think what they say is in effect on all college basketball teams right now across the country for the next couple of weeks.
Good point. Go back to Virginia Tech for a second. One of the things I think you have to be aware of if you're West Virginia, listen, I get that Buzz isn't going to win many popularity contests here in the state of West Virginia, but you said earlier, the guy can coach. And at some point, he's going to start knocking some people off and winning some games down there. And how often have we seen this when a coach is new and getting a program rolling? There's a signature moment that comes along when you get a big win and the coach can go back inside and say, all right, there, I told you, if you'll just listen, you'll get some of these games. So if you're West Virginia, you have to be a little bit afraid of that walking into a scenario with an excited building and a guy that does know how to coach, and at some point he's going to get one of those signature wins.
Yeah, and you just hope that it's not your turn that day. You have got, if you're West Virginia, you're a nationally ranked team. There are expectations for you to be an NCAA team, which is all very fair from where you were a year ago. This is what separates pretender teams and real teams. Real teams go in and they set the tone. They say, here we are, we're balling, let's go. Mm-hmm. And the fake teams that have kind of been smoke and mirroring it in the early portion of the season, they really get exposed now. You got to have attitude. To win on the road, you've got to have attitude. It doesn't need to be an overbearing cockiness. You just have to have a concert, a continuity of thought of how everyone plays. And I think that was a key to West Virginia last season. I think they've shown some signs, say that quickly, of it this year, but not consistently because they haven't had to.
Yeah.
It's been too easy. So I think the big question is, how will this team handle adversity now? I mean, I don't think, with the exception of Virginia, right, we've not been down double figures in a game this season. That's not often uncommon in a college basketball season. You go down 10, you battle back, right?
Yep.
And we haven't had that adversity yet. Not to say that they can't, but that's really what's going to become the characteristic and the DNA of this team.
So a third of the way through the season, there are still so many unknowns. But what have you seen that you like? What has you the most concerned?
It's a good question. What have I seen that I liked? I mean, I like the ability that the press continues to cause problems and makes people uncomfortable. I like the fact that Devin Williams has improved up about a 10 percentage point in regard to his field goal percentage from a year ago. I like those things. I like Jayshawn Page shooting the ball. He's up 10 percentage points from the field where he was a year ago. I like all of those things. My question is an intangible, and that is, now that you've established who you are as a team and as a program, what direction you're going in, I want to see that, and I talked to Hugs about this last night, I want to see, as a fan, that energy displayed consistently and just this great sense of teamwork. That's what I would want to see. I want to see teamwork every night where it's kind of like one for all and all for one. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see anyone moping if they get taken out. I don't want to see anybody bumming out if they're not getting theirs. I just want to see a team effort, because the ultimate assignment is win the game. That's what the object is, win the game. Not did you get double-double, not did you shoot the ball as many times as you wanted to. That's nothing to do with it. It's all a strategy, a part of a plan to win the game.
Agree. All right, let's fast forward real quick before we let you run, because the Virginia Tech game's a nice step up, but the road trip doesn't end there. So now you're staying on the road at Kansas State, at TCU, and I'll even go one further. Then you come home for Oklahoma State. Mm-hmm. So we've talked the last couple of years, what an important opening to the Big 12 season it is and how much you can build some momentum if you can go in and get some wins. That's especially true this year. 2 road games, a third at home over teams that you expect to be better than in the standings, but certainly no gimmies.
Agreed. And, I mean, I don't know what the lines are going to be in those games, but I personally would say those are coin flip games right now. It's not going to be easy going into Kansas State. I don't care if they're good or if they're bad or if they're in the middle. Teams just don't go in there and win all the time, right? TCU is buoyed by their new arena. Mm-hmm. They've got players. Trent Johnson's done a nice job improving that program year in and year out. We've gotten out of there a couple of times, just kind of on a whisker, right, here at home, just kind of a whisker deal. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the easiest way to put it is that now every game you can lose. That's as simple as to say it.
That's right.
You could lose every game.
But wouldn't you agree in those 3, those are ones, if you're going to make a run at a Big 12 title or at least be in the mix coming down the stretch, you've got to win these next 3 games after Virginia Tech. Those are games you have as wins if you're going to contend. You have to.
Let me answer that first by saying you're Mr. Must-Win, not only in football and basketball. No, I agree with you. Yeah, the upper echelon teams win those games.
Yeah. I mean, you can still get to the NCAA tournament if you give a couple of those back. You can still have a good season. I'm not saying that, and it's not as essential as these football games are because you have more of them. But those are 3 opponents, while albeit tough games, that they're ones you got to go win.
Agreed. Yep, don't disagree with you.
All right, we'll let you run. I know you got travel coming up. We'll check in with you. We're going to talk to you tomorrow night on the show following the game at Virginia Tech, so we'll get your post-game thoughts on that coming up tomorrow. Thanks for the time.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. There he is, Tony Caridi, joining us. Stay with us. Time for a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little football, Big 12 football specifically, with Ben Kirchhoff from the Bleacher Report. Stay with us. We're back.
West Virginia has balanced its budget on the back of the coal industry ever since we became a state 150 years ago. Historically, the coal industry and coal-fired electric utilities have accounted for over 60% of all business taxes, while high-energy wages contribute a disproportionate share of income taxes, and coal severance dollars sustain important programs in all counties. All told, the industry infuses over $26 billion to our state's economy. Coal alone has paid down nearly $1 billion of the state's workers' compensation debt. Consequently, all state businesses have experienced major reductions in workers' comp benefits. The coal industry has always supported our people and our economy, but it's under attack from the Obama administration and the EPA. It's fighting to survive. Coal taxes in West Virginia are higher than our surrounding states. We're losing coal markets to our neighbors. Let's get our mines and coal miners working again. Support a reduced tax rate for mining, paid for by West Virginia Coal Association.
When you drive impaired in West Virginia, you break the law and endanger the lives of others. Law enforcement across the state is committed to keeping impaired drivers off the road. If you drive impaired, be prepared to pay the price. There are consequences. It's simple, West Virginia. Drive sober or get pulled over.
This message is brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program, the West Virginia Division of Motor Vehicles, and the West Virginia Department of Transportation.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event, it's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Welcome back inside Northside Automotive, Statewide Sportsline. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter along with you, Tuesday edition. Quick reminder from our friends at Northside Automotive. Their pre-owned Christmas clearance sale is going on now. Over 250 pre-owned vehicles and a great selection of GM-certified trucks and SUVs are available. One of the great deals, Hunter, listen up. This is a great deal. I'm
listening.
Pay attention. 2009 Jeep Wrangler. Regular price, $25,900. Christmas clearance sale price, now only $21,988. Save nearly $4,000 on a 2009 Jeep Wrangler. If you want to get a look at this Jeep, head over to Northside's Facebook page, and you can check it out. Quick update on the basketball score from the Big 12 we were mentioning. Texas Tech still leading Richmond. Red Raiders are up 66-54, 7:50 remaining in the second half. So, again, if they hold on and win that game, that's a nice win for Tubby Smith and crew. The football game we're watching, Baylor leading North Carolina 14-10, 12 minutes to go in the second quarter. Let's get some more football talk in the show. We're joined now by Bleacher Report's Ben Kercheval. Ben, welcome to the program.
How's it going, guys?
We're doing well, my friend. Now tell us, as you're sitting here watching this Baylor game, they're playing with every conceivable skill guy injured. We're seeing Lynx Hawthorne sighting again at the QB position. Yep. Corey Coleman's out. Shock Linwood's out. Stidham's out. Yet here they are leading North Carolina as we move into the second quarter. Surprised?
Yeah, but it's bowl season, and you should never really know what to expect with that. Part of me is fascinated by this. And the other part of me is frustrated as hell because I'm sitting there like, this isn't an offense, what they're doing. They're putting together a bunch of different packages, some wildcat, some single wing. There's like 5 different guys have already thrown a pass. There's just because there's no real quarterback. They have Chris Johnson, but obviously they're not solely dependent on him. And if you're North Carolina, you've already given up like 200 yards rushing. About 2 plays ago, Baylor threw a pass, and probably for the first time this season, I asked why. Like, why would you do that? Why would you throw a pass when you can just run the ball? And Baylor's going to finish this game unless North Carolina can make some in-game adjustments. And Gene Chizik, remember, defensive coordinator for the Tar Heels, done a really fantastic job this season. They're going to have to make some in-game adjustments. Otherwise, Baylor's going to rush for easily 300 to 400 yards on the ground. And it's when you throw so many different things at you and there's not real any rhyme or reason to it, you're just trying to find things that work. That can actually be tough to defend, even though you're really one-dimensional in terms of the play calling itself.
And boy, you said it, and we've mentioned this earlier about just the unpredictable nature of bowl games. You don't know what you're going to get for any given team. Baylor's playing with absolutely zero pressure. There's no expectation they're going to win. I said to Greg earlier, not that they want to lose, but if they lose, there's no bad ramifications for them. They're expected to. They have no guys. Carolina comes in off the cusp of really being in the mix, I guess, for a playoff spot, but certainly a New Year's Six bowl, and they're playing against a Baylor team that they know is beat up. You could see where they may come in a little bit lax, and here they are. Now they're in a dogfight they probably didn't expect.
Yeah, there's that, and there was probably no other point in the game where it was more evident than when Art Briles went for it on 4th down in his own territory in the first quarter. You've got a whole game to play. You've got 55 minutes left in the game, and you're already going for it, saying what do we have to lose other than the game? And the game doesn't matter. It's a bowl game. It goes on your record, but other than that, there's no real major implications on anything. So they're playing YOLO. And I like it. I like that they're doing that. I like that they're doing this approach, not playing scared. I wish more teams would do this. And, yeah, if you're down to your backup running back taking direct snaps, what do you got to lose by? Why would you punt?
We're joined by Bleacher Report's Ben Kercheval, who might be the first person to ever use YOLO on the Sportsline.
Ben,
that's what the kids are saying these days.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
I don't know it, so I'm way out of the loop. But Ben, this is the start of the Big 12 bowl games. There are certainly some interesting ones coming up, culminating or not culminating, but the most intriguing of which obviously is Oklahoma in the college football playoff. But out of these other bowl games, I guess there are 4 others. One more tonight, 3 on Saturday, including West Virginia. Which one of those intrigue you? How do you view those?
Overall, I don't know that the Big 12 got a real great lineup this year. Bowls are all just, it's about motivation, which we touched on a little bit with the Russell Athletic Bowl, but a lot of times it's about matchups and how do you match up with the other team. And I don't know that the Big 12 got a real great draw this year in terms of who they're playing, so it really wouldn't surprise me if the Big 12 had a quote-unquote bad bowl season just in terms of the losses. The Alamo Bowl is interesting. I think that TCU is going to be playing shorthanded with Josh Doxson not being available. I just don't know that the Frogs have another guy in the passing game who can really take over like Doxson can. Colby Listenby can sort of do it. He did it a little bit against Oklahoma, but I just don't know that he has that real presence that Doxson has. So even though they should have Trevon Boykin, just the fact that he's not going to be playing, I think is a real just bummer for them, even with Oregon's pass defense being what it is and how bad it is. So I can see Oregon winning that game. It could still be pretty fun, though. As for the one that I really think the Big 12 could make a big statement in is I think it's the Sugar Bowl. That's Oklahoma State and Ole Miss. If I'm not mistaken, even with that being indoors, fast track, I really like the way that Oklahoma State, if Mason Rudolph's able to go, I really like the way that passing attack can pick up chunk yards, pick up points. Mike Gundy has a tremendous record in the postseason. He really does. Hugh Freeze, on the other hand, a little hit and miss. I like Oklahoma State to actually pull off the upset in that game. I think that just if they are healthy and they're ready to go, I think that passing attack could cause them a lot of problems.
And you're right. That could be a huge statement game for the league to go in and get a win on that stage against an SEC opponent. The other obvious marquee game is Oklahoma in the college football playoff. But before we get to on-field and what you think their chances are, they've been making some news this week off the field, and it's coming from 2 different sources. One is this Baker Mayfield stuff that's really interesting to me. Is clearly he's not a guy that's afraid to say anything. So if people aren't up to speed on that, real quick, here's the Reader's Digest version. He answered earlier this week a question about recruiting and who had recruited him, and he kind of came out and went after TCU a little bit and insinuated that they left him hanging with a scholarship offer. Well, that floated around for a day or two, and then Gary Patterson came back. And, Ben, I have to say, I was a little surprised at how strongly he came back. He basically refuted the timing of that and said they offered him earlier, and then given what they had going on, they pulled that or let him know they weren't going to be offering him earlier. But he came out. Let me read this quote real quick, and this is for our listeners. I know you know this, but I thought this was a little bit surprising coming from a head coach. This is Gary Patterson, TCU, talking about Baker Mayfield. He says this: Baker's been out for us for a while. If he wants to blame TCU for 128 BCS schools not offering him a scholarship, that's fine. But ask Cliff Kingsbury why he didn't offer him a scholarship at Texas Tech. Ask about Baker's dad. He's an arrogant guy who thinks he knows everything. If people knew the whole story, they might not have a great opinion of Baker or his father. So again, I'm only surprised from the standpoint, you just don't see coaches come back that strongly very often.
Well, first of all, Gary Patterson is a hornet. He does not care about anybody. And I actually kind of like that about him. He's really refreshing. He's really honest. Now, what you don't always see is him talking about a player like that, right? It kind of comes back to the basic understanding that these are college players, and you got to be a little bit lighter with the criticism, especially when they're not your own players. But that's Gary Patterson in a nutshell. That's what he's going to do. There's the old media adage of there's one side, the other side, and then there's the truth, which is probably somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. So what always strikes me as fascinating about Mayfield is, you're right, not afraid to speak his mind. He carries himself with this, not only with the confidence and the swagger, but also with this giant chip on his shoulder. He was never offered by the major programs coming out of high school. And what's to me, I wonder if this would be viewed differently if he hadn't had the bad breakup with Texas Tech. Because I think everything always, even though it's been a couple of years now, everything always seems to point back to that. I had someone try to tell me the other day, why is Mayfield still whining about this? Well, he's not the first guy to ever come out and say, I wasn't offered by this school, I wasn't offered by that school, I work every day because I wasn't offered at a high school. And people always view that as, oh, he's got the chip on his shoulder, right? He's got that extra edge because no one gave him the respect. But with Mayfield, he's a whiner or he's a complainer. Now, I don't know anything about him or his dad, so it's not on me to make a comment on those things, whether they're true or not. I'm just saying I think the perception of Baker Mayfield will forever be linked to how he separated from Texas Tech. And I'm not saying he handled it correctly. I'm not saying Cliff Kingsbury handled it correctly, because neither side did. But I think he will always be labeled negatively in a way because of what happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. The other off-field part of that is Joe Mixon, the star running back for Oklahoma, spoke today for the first time, and you'll remember he sat out last year for allegedly smashing a girl in the face, and he has not spoken about it. And, Ben, he just got swarmed today and really didn't say anything, but I just thought the timing of it was interesting that it turned into a whole thing today.
Yeah, it did. It turned into a story, and that's unfortunate on a couple of levels. It turned into a story of whether the media should ask him questions about that alleged incident, which there is video. Supposedly it's going to come out somewhat soon. Something that happened a year and a half ago. Well, Brad, the answer is yes. Of course they're going to ask him about that. That's their job. And I think what ended up really setting this thing off in a direction that it didn't need to go is when apparently somebody from the Orange Bowl went rogue. Someone went rogue today and said, Joe Mixon's only going to talk about football stuff. He's not going to talk about off-the-field stuff. Well, there's your first mistake. All right, you're not going to tell the media what they can and can't ask. They're going to ask what they ask, and if you make him available, they're going to do their jobs. And if Mixon comes out and says, I've been advised by my lawyer not to say anything because there's a possibility of a civil suit coming up. I just want you, if Mixon's lawyer came out ahead of time and said, you can ask him whatever you want, I'm just telling you right now, he's not going to be able to answer anything, that would create an entirely different, I think, light on the whole situation. So the fact that this was handled pretty poorly by everyone from the beginning, I don't necessarily feel bad for Mixon, but no one really did him any favors. I think he was kind of left to fend for himself. Ultimately, though, what sort of ticks me off about this whole thing is that you're right. It became a story about the coverage of the story. And what we should really be talking about is how we view assault, especially on women, which is a hot button topic, through the prism of college athletics. Do we feel that players are deserving of another chance? That's a separate branch of the discussion that no one really wants to get into because it's a very sensitive subject. There are bigger picture topics that I think are more worth discussing than the obvious answer, which is, well, should the media ask him about it, which is an absolute yes, they should. So mishandled by the Orange Bowl. I think it's been mishandled by Oklahoma for the past year. It's been mishandled by Bob Stoops, who's said, well, we have a no-tolerance policy. Well, no, you don't have a no-tolerance policy. You have a rehabilitation policy. So I think there's just been a lot of disingenuous, just the way that this has been carried. So not really happy with it, but just, look, it was a story leading up to the Orange Bowl. It's unfortunate, but when you don't make him available for a year and a half, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And again, this is going to come up more if that video comes out. We're joined by Bleacher Report's Ben Kercheval.
Ben, all this said and all these other bowl games, does the perception of the Big 12 really ride on what Oklahoma does?
Yeah, probably, just because they're playing for the whole thing. They're going for it all. If the Big 12 has a losing record in bowl games, but Oklahoma goes on and wins the whole thing, I don't think people are going to be talking about, the Big 12 as, oh, they had a bad postseason. Ohio State went on to win the national championship last year, and they had a bigger hill to climb because the Big Ten got off to that really atrocious start in the regular season. How many people were talking about that after Ohio State won? Mm-hmm. Not at all. So if Oklahoma goes on, wins the whole thing, then I think that's what you're putting all your chips on. So, yeah, if they go out, they beat Clemson, beat the winner of Alabama, Michigan State in the national championship, then, yeah, that's going to be what people look at as far as the Big 12 goes. If Oklahoma gets knocked out in the first round, I think that's when they get lumped into, okay, how did the rest of the Big 12 do as a whole?
As always, great stuff. We'll let you run. Go watch the Baylor game. Baylor's now taking the lead 21-10 over North Carolina, and we'll catch up with you Saturday as part of our pregame coverage for the Cactus Bowl.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Ben. There he is, Ben Kercheval, checking in for Bleacher Report. Check him out at Ben Kercheval on Twitter. And again, he'll be part of our 4 hours of pregame coverage that comes up Saturday beginning at 6 p.m. on many of these same stations. Time for a final break. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on the show. Stay with us. We're back after this.
The field of corrections is fast-growing and full of opportunities for advancement. Right now, the West Virginia Division of Corrections has openings for male and female correctional officers throughout the state. If you have a high school diploma or GED and can pass a drug test, visit wvdoc.com to see job listings and apply. These are state jobs with great benefits and an accelerated hiring process to get you on your way quickly. Visit wvdoc.com today. An equal opportunity employer.
So here's a reminder to motorists. Always be on the lookout for motorcyclists. And to riders, before you venture out, perform your T-Clock inspection. You know, tires, controls, lights, oil, and chassis. T-Clock. Let's all think safety first, driving or riding on West Virginia highways, no matter the weather.
This message from the West Virginia Governor's Highway Safety Program.
The Northside Automotive Statewide Sportsline returns in 2 minutes. On Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
This fall, not all blockbusters are movies. The Jeep Black Friday Blockbuster Sales Event. It's the must-see event of the year. Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on the 2015 Grand Cherokee Laredo for $279 a month.
Final segment of the show. Welcome back in. Brad Howe, Greg Hunter along with you. And we're reminding you the Friends of Old Time Music and Dance are hosting a New Year's celebration this Friday in Charleston. The event includes a dance workshop for new dancers, family fun activities, a kids' art table, hors d'oeuvres, and refreshments. Award-winning songwriter and vocalist John Lilly will be joined by Robert Schaefer, Jesse Milnes, and John Thornton for a lively evening of old-time music, contra dances, square dances, swing, and waltzes. Real mountain music. You'll find it here, wild, wonderful, West Virginia. Greg, giving you an update on that Texas Tech basketball score against Richmond. Red Raiders are still leading. They're up 78-64 at the now under 4 media timeout. 3:28 remaining in that game. So again, Texas Tech looking to move to 10-1 on the season with a win over Richmond. So no surprise, Big 12 is going to be a good basketball league again. but it really gets dangerous when those bottom teams become teams you really have to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, you used to count on 2, 3, 4 of those being able to be relatively easy victories, and maybe not so. Of course, we've known that with Tubby Smiths of the world coaching at Texas Tech, it was probably inevitable that the Red Raiders would start to make some moves, and same thing at TCU. So it was likely that they were going to improve, and so far it certainly looks like Texas Tech is improved. Now, again, that said, let's see how they do going into Big 12 competition.
Yes.
Last year, remember, TCU was ranked in 13-0 at one point, and then hardly won a game within the league.
No question.
Let's wait a little bit.
No question. Not ready to proclaim them Big 12 champs just yet, but that's a win that certainly from those of us that saw that Richmond team out in Vegas, that's a nice win for Texas Tech and the league. Speaking of wins for the league, Baylor having a really surprising performance, up 21-10 here on North Carolina in the Russell Athletic Bowl. And again, I you asked Ben, does the reputation of the league stand with Oklahoma? And certainly I think a big chunk of it does. Be interested to see what's made of this game if Baylor finds a way to hang on and win. I think that's one that certainly helps just because of all their injury issues.
Sure.
That's a nice win standing out. Again, lot of game to go here.
Absolutely.
And a lot of things can happen. North Carolina's explosive as heck on offense, so certainly not in the books yet, but quite frankly, I'm surprised Baylor's put up 21 so far.
And not only is their offense played well, but again, against a really good North Carolina offense itself, Baylor's defense is, again, they've given up 10 points, but they've held the Tar Heels from any explosive plays, which is certainly a key that North Carolina has utilized. So they're their side of things so often in the past. But North Carolina sort of grinding out a little drive here and got a new first down. So we'll see as the first half rolls down a little bit if Tar Heels can cut into this lead.
So just a bunch of sports coming up. Texas Tech plays later this evening against LSU, and then as we mentioned, West Virginia back in action tomorrow afternoon against Virginia Tech. And Greg, as we talked with Tony earlier, I'm interested to watch that game. Certainly a step up in competition, but not a team that's going to contend for the ACC title. But this is a nice road test for this Mountaineer team that I think comes along at a good time for them.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect time. Again, it's going to be a sellout crowd, as Tony was alluding to, at Castle Coliseum. Now, probably several thousand of those are going to be Mountaineer fans. Certainly all the people in the Beckley, Bluefield, Princeton, Lewisburg area are going to take advantage of a game that's not too far away from their homes to see the Mountaineers. So again, it's going to be a packed house, but they won't all be in Hokie fans. But again, I think it's an opportunity for West Virginia to see what it's going to be like as this league moves forward, as the road tests continue. It would be a disappointing loss, I'll admit. Even though it's on the road, West Virginia went down there 2 years ago and didn't play well, lost a game, but that was a younger and not nearly as good a Mountaineer team as this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Tony said it well earlier. Good teams go on the road and beat teams like Virginia Tech. So if West Virginia is going to have the year we all think they could have, you go in tomorrow, and even if it's a hard-fought game, you take care of Virginia Tech on the road in a hostile environment. That's going to do it for tonight. If you missed any part of the show, remember, you can catch the podcast on iTunes or visit our website, wvmetronews.com, and download tonight's show. Thanks to Bleacher Report's Ben Kercheval for joining us this evening. Thanks to Deb Martinelli on the video, Joe Nelson producing on the phones. For Greg Hunter, I'm Brad Howe. Now, Coach Hunter, travel safe tomorrow. We will check in. Next time we talk to you, you will be live in Arizona.
The desert.
All right, have a good trip. Travel safe. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for listening tonight. We're out.